All right, this chapter is going to be about cell reproduction. We'll talk about the cell cycle, mitosis, and meiosis. So, why do we talk about meiosis? Why do we talk about mitosis? Really, why do we talk about something called cell division? Why is cell division important? Well, cell division is critical for continuing replacement of aging or lost cells. So as you know, you're made of cells, for example, your skin cells, your stomach cells, your neurons. So we have cells throughout. And some of the cells, like for example, your skin cells, they tend to get old fast and we need to replace those, right? Or for example, whenever you cut yourself, right? Whenever you cut yourself, you have to regenerate that tissue. So we see a lot of cell division. And that is why it's important because it's going to be replacing those aging or lost cells, okay? Also, cell division is critical for the production of additional cells to allow for growth and reproduction. So how do you grow? How do you become from a baby to an adult? Cell division, making more and more and more cells. So that is, again, this is the two main reasons why cell division is extremely important to replace those lost cells or those aging cells and also to grow, okay? And usually we'll refer to cell division mostly as we'll talk about mitosis. Okay, so here's some examples of cell division. So for example, some cells, some organisms, okay, as you can see over here, this is going to be a human kidney. So human kidney, sometimes we have to replace those cells or make up for new cells or just have new kidney cells, right? And how they want to be replaced. How do we replace our new cells? Via cell division. When you are an embryo, a human embryo, in the first stages of your development, a lot of cells. So you start with one cell, okay? That's a cell. You start with one cell, and eventually it's going to be dividing into many different cells, okay? And eventually it will differentiate into your different tissues, organs, etc. Okay, so these are examples of, for example, in cell division in terms of cell replacement, for example, the kidney to make new cells, or in cell division as we develop as an embryo. But cell division can also be part of asexual reproduction. Okay, so that means that you pretty much only need one parent to be able to grow, to reproduce. A good example is this amoeba here. This amoeba is a protist. If you remember, we talked about the kingdoms of life, and we talked about in the eukarya domain, there are going to be the animal kingdom, the fungi, the plantae, and also the protist, right? The protista kingdom. Well, this is a protist, and is an amoeba. An amoeba is a unicellular organism. Okay, and the way it divides, the way it makes more amoeba cells is via cell division. Okay, via cell division. So one cell pretty much splits into two. Okay, some other organisms, for example, the sea star, it can regenerate itself. It can regenerate its arms. It can even grow by itself. Okay, via a process of mitosis or cell division. Okay, and sometimes you also see kind of asexual reproduction in plants. Okay, but whenever you hear about asexual reproduction, again, remember it's going to be one cell. Okay, one cell can give rise to two cells. It requires only one parent. And to state that, let's go through this power. Let's go to this slide. Here we go. Two types of sexual reproduction. We have asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. So remember this. These are the two types of reproduction: asexual versus sexual. Okay. During asexual reproduction, an organism or a cell reproduces by making that exact copy of itself, pretty much making something called a clone. Okay, the offspring is going to have it's exactly the same copy as the parent because the offspring has the same genetic material as the parent cell. And most unicellular organisms reproduce via asexual reproduction. Like I show you right now, for example, the amoeba. Okay, another ones are going to be, for example, bacteria. Okay, some protists, like for example, the amoeba that I'll show you. There's other ones, for example, paramecium. There's a lot of different cells, protist organisms that are unicellular, and most of them are able to reproduce via asexual reproduction. But here the thing to understand about asexual reproduction is it requires one cell, and this cell divides into two. Okay, and if we're gonna be call this this is gonna be the parent cell. Okay, this is gonna be the daughter cell. I put D for daughter, D for daughter, and they're gonna be genetically identical to parent. Okay, both daughter cells are gonna be identically um, genetically identical to the parent. Now, the other types of reproduction is gonna be sexual reproduction, which I'm pretty sure you probably heard about before. In sexual reproduction, you need to have two parents. Okay, so two organisms exchange genetic material, producing a new generation of organisms that is similar, but it's not genetically identical. Okay, so in asexual reproduction, genetically identical. During sexual reproduction, is not genetically identical. For sexual reproduction, it requires an egg, requires a sperm. Okay, there's a process called fertilization. Fertilization is when the egg and the sperm come together and create something called a zygote. So fertilization really is when when the sperm and the egg come together and make something called a zygote. And a zygote is a cell which eventually will then eventually divide by mitosis. And we'll talk about it a little later on. Gametes, egg and sperm, are produced by reproductive tissues in males, in testes, ovaries, females. Okay, so the testes, the ovaries are going to be producing the gametes. And remember what gametes are, because I may have that in the exam. What is a gamete? Gamete, well, there's a male gamete, there's a female gamete, which is the egg, and a male gamete is going to be the sperm. So gametes, egg, and sperm. And why is this important, or why do we focus on these? Because you will see one thing. We'll talk a lot about mitosis. And mitosis is pretty much asexual reproduction. You start with a parent and you end up with two identical, genetically identical daughter cells. But we have to talk about another process called meiosis. And meiosis is how we make our gametes, how we make our egg and our sperm. And you will see that there's a big difference, especially in terms of the number of chromosomes.